Hey, Browns fans, Dalvin Tomlinson had new defensive tackle for y'all, man. I'm super excited to be here, playing the dog pound and everything, and make some plays for y'all, man. So he's ready to get some wins as well. So let's have a good season. Make sure y'all come to the games and support us like y'all always been doing. Appreciate y'all.
Welcome to the Dawgs Podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, John Nye, and Josh All.
Hey, what's up, Browns fans? Welcome to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Josh with you today, and I got a special guest, Derek Frisby from DF Sports on YouTube, joining the show today. How we doing, Derek?
Doing good. Got a lot to talk about. We've been pretty busy.
We have been busy. Browns have been signing guys. Do you feel like it's been a little bit more, I don't know, what do I want to say, hot and heavy, frequent? Like they've been signing more guys than the last couple of years?
Yeah, I feel like in the past few years, it's been more upfront signings. You know, you saw Andrew Berry come out and get John Johnson and Austin Hooper. And now it's kind of like, all right, let's let the dust settle and then let's get some of these cheaper guys. So yeah, a little bit more, but I also think it's kind of calculated. It's like a wait and see who falls type deal.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So we're going to get Derek's opinions on free agency, kind of get his overall grade for the Browns so far, as maybe top favorite signing, maybe top one or two, and then we'll just kind of get some ideas of guys that you've got your eyes on that Browns could still potentially sign and what positions you think we need to fill. But before we dive into all that, make sure you check us out on all our socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. What did I just even say? All those? I don't even know. But anyway, YouTube, make sure that you are liking this video, subscribe to the channel. We got more content coming out all the time. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. You're going to be seeing more of Derek here in the future. He's definitely going to be joining us, right, for draft night in April?
I would love to.
Okay, absolutely. Derek's going to be live in studio, and he's actually going to get a little bit of a treat because as of right now, we're not planning on streaming straight from our podcast studio, which you'll still get to come see in person and everything, all the setup. But we're actually going to stream from our sister studio, the AGA Studios, which is more of like a TV studio. So it's going to be pretty legit. I think we're gonna have a good time doing it.
Nice.
Yeah. So that'll be.
You don't gotta treat me like I'm Stephen A. I don't need the special studio. You know.
Well, we're gonna do it anyway.
All right, I'll take it.
Yeah, you better take it. So make sure you guys are tuned in April 28th, 7:00. We're gonna kick it off night 2 of the NFL draft. That way we can cover round 2 where the Browns actually do have a pick. And we'll just kind of go for round 2, round 3 as long as we can until we get too tired, I guess. But
there you go.
Last thing, make sure you guys check out the t-shirt contest. Go to thedawgspodcast.com/win, WIN, for all the details on that. And make sure if you want more Browns content, join thedawgs.com, become an official Dawg Pack member. Derek's in there. He's one of our guys. We have a lot of fun. We're putting more content out. Extra episode every week. It's a little more uncensored. We just kind of let her loose a little bit. So that's all. Always a good time.
You want to hear the real Blake.
The real Blake, yeah. I mean, if you can handle the Blake on the show, give jointhedawgs.com a try and see if you can handle that Blake.
Good luck.
Good luck. All right, well, let's just kick it off. Let's dive into, your thoughts. Let's give us your overall grade and feelings on the Browns free agency so far.
Yeah, so my overall grade, I'm going to give him a B+, but the thing here is I feel like it has potential to be an A- because a lot of the guys that we signed, I think, and not to jump the gun here, but my favorite is Dalvin Tomlinson because he's the most sure thing, right? That's a guy, you locked him up for 4 years. Yes, it was a little bit pricey. No, it wasn't Javon Hargrave. No, it wasn't Draymond Jones, but you got a guy at a position who is his best skill set is that run defense. And Josh, I know you got to a couple games. I got to a couple games for the first time, by the way. That was fun. But it wasn't fun watching that interior defensive line just get ran all over all season. It was atrocious. So Tomlinson is your sure thing, right? He's going to come in. He's going to be your veteran, your big impact guy on that interior defensive line. But getting Okoronkwo, which I've learned to say that name,
right?
Which we're going to still call him 00, but you got to pick it up sooner or later. Having 2 guys in the top 4 as far as pass rush win rate is insanity. Like, Josh, that is crazy that's a thing that we can say. So he's going to be getting a little bit bigger of a role. I think we're going to use him in rotation, though. I think on rundowns, I think you're going to see some Alex Wright thrown out there. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him, but that has potential. Man, how many years in a row have we said, hey, get that guy for Myles Garrett, opposite of him? Clowney was all right. I liked some of what we got out of Clowney, but we have a guy here that could really, really pop off if everything goes well. Just overall, some of the re-signings, I think Posick coming back is really good. Taki coming back is really good. And I think the underrated one, AJ Green, is really good depth.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, I mean, hey, some of the D tackles we signed, Hurst, you talked about it. He's got some potential, man.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a, starter come in and just light you up, but he's a guy that could be really good in rotation. And then last one that I want to talk about here, Juan Thornhill. Man, to get a safety of his caliber for $7 million a year, and he's only guaranteed 14, that's pretty good. And I think what people forget is the Browns, yes, the Chiefs have won multiple Super Bowls, but the Browns have a better secondary. When used correctly, the Browns have a better secondary. So as good as Juan Thornhill played in Kansas City, imagine him not having to worry as much about the busted coverages, which I know some fans are going to be laughing given what we've seen, but I think under Jim Schwartz, that'll be cleaned up a lot more, and now you have a legit free safety who's a ball hawk, can knock balls out of the air, can pick balls off. So I think overall, I'm going to give it a B+. I think we're 1 to 2 away from an A. This is where I'm sitting right now.
I don't think that's unfair whatsoever. I think you made a couple great points there. One thing that I've seen over and over on social media and people just commenting on our stuff is we get a lot of feedback from Chiefs fans that are devastated they lost Juan Thornhill. They love that guy. And to see the fan base of the team that the guy just came from coming to our team's content and saying, you guys got one. You got one here. Like that's pretty encouraging to see, because a lot of times, more times than not, when a guy leaves the team, the fan base is usually ready for him to go. Think about Clowney with us, like, okay, it's time to go. Like, it doesn't always end well, but with the Chiefs and Thornhill, it did, and they love him. And I think you made a great point about Obo being opposite of Myles Garrett, but putting him in tandem with Dalvin Tomlinson in the middle, because Tomlinson's going to create pressure in his own right, which will free up more potential for these two guys off the edge to hit home, and that's what they're good at.
Yeah, and Tomlinson's, he's a beefy dude.
Yes, he is.
That is a big man, and a lot of people are going to talk about the rest of that defensive tackle room. For me, we're going to be all right. I mean, there's a couple things I would like them to do in that defensive tackle room, including probably signing another guy who's out there who I'll bring up later. And then draft one at some point. You don't have to draft one at 42, but if you draft one, third, fourth round, okay, throw a guy in that room. But yeah, just, you've talked about it. I've talked about it. It just having that guy that you can rely on. It's not the question mark. Dalvin Tomlinson, you know who he is, right? Kevin Stefanski knows who he is. You don't got to worry about that. And you can kind of supplement that room around him now, which is it's a big relief. It's a massive relief, because you don't have to worry about your top guy. You can worry about 2, 3, 4, 5, right. And whatever rotation you want to fill in there. And plus, how much is a guy like that going to help Perrion Winfrey? I feel like that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, that's kind of an underrated benefit right there for sure, because Perrion showed second half of the year, maybe the last third of the season last year, he really started to come on and pop off the tape. You'd be watching games and thinking, well, there's Perrion Winfrey. Okay. You started to see the potential of why he was touted so much higher than what he got drafted.
Yeah, he was a puppy last season, and he started to develop into a dog.
I like
what it is.
Yep. And by all, we talked about this at the beginning of last season too, in regards to Winfrey, the defensive tackle position takes a little longer to develop in the NFL, just because the guys that these defensive tackles are up against in college, the offensive linemen, they can bully them around so much easier than you can these professional linemen that actually made it to the NFL and are starting on the opposing offensive line. So it's definitely a challenge for these, rookie defensive tackles to come right in and transition because there's just it's tougher for them. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's a weird position. It's kind of like tight end. You talk about tight end, takes a little bit longer. D tackle, and it's also who are you with? Because if you have nobody helping you, then you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So that's part two, and agreeing with you on why I think, bringing in a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson, just that veteran leadership was so desperately needed. We had a bunch of children on that defensive line, and, but you can't really expect anything less than what we've got. That's the effort you put into the room. That's what you're going to get. So now you're putting more effort in. I think you're going to get a lot more out of it. That's how I feel.
Yeah, but I think you made a great point about things being different under Jim Schwartz. I think, they didn't have that leader on the defensive unit last year. I mean, we talked about which guy's going to step up and be the leader. Well, at the end of the day, it starts from the top. And if you don't have a leader in the coaching position that's the head of that unit, it's tough for these guys, that are actually playing to step up and try to be the leader because there's nobody above you to take that responsibility. So I think Jim Schwartz is going to make a huge, huge difference for this defense.
Yeah, and I think it's going to make a huge difference for Kevin Stefanski. I think he desperately, desperately needed the head coach of the defense, and he gave that job to one of his buddies who never should have been in that spot. And now you have a legit guy who this defense and this team can look at, and I'm not even just the defense, the team as a whole can look at Jim Schwartz and look at what he's done in the NFL and say, that's a guy you can believe in because he's got the record. He's got Super Bowls. Or a Super Bowl. I can't remember. But he's proven, right? Kevin Stefanski, as much as I love him and I think he's good, he's not going to garner the same respect as a Jim Schwartz. So the fact that Kevin doesn't have to necessarily deal with the defense as much anymore and can kind of manage his own thing, I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, because that's a great point. Kevin is not your typical head coach where he's overseeing all facets of the team. He is so offensive focused because he's calling the plays. That's his thing. So that's his specialty. He likes to stay in that lane, and that's fine. If that's what you're good at, stay in your lane. But at the same time, if you're not going to focus on the defense and that's not your thing, you better make sure whoever is in charge knows what they're doing and can get the job done. Joe Woods was just not that guy. You're right. Absolutely not.
Never should have got the job to begin with.
No.
I mean, I've heard people say, oh, he was a hot name when we hired him. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. He failed. He failed in Denver. He was, lucky enough to be on a coaching staff that, was in the Super Bowl with the 49ers. We've seen it happen all the time. These guys go from coordinator to defensive coordinator, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out. I don't hate Jim Schwartz, or not Jim Schwartz. I don't hate Joe Woods, the person. For all accounts, he's a good guy. But it's the same thing with Freddie Kitchens. It's like, dude, you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Like, you got a great defense right now to work with, and you just do not know what you're doing. So yeah, Schwartz. I'm pumped about Schwartz. I really wanted, oh gosh, you know who I'm talking about, Brian Flores. Yeah, I really wanted Flores, but looking at the bigger picture, I think Schwartz, even though he's older, so it's not like he's going to be a long-term solution, but he's not going to be a head coach again.
Right. He'll be a longer term than Flores would have been.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he was the number one guy. It's kind of the same thing with Baba. It's like, hey, they identified him, they interviewed him first, they got him. So I don't know. I think the coaching staff took a major step forward. I don't know about you.
Oh, for sure. 100%. I mean, like I said, offensively, I don't think we had much of an issue. I mean, we were leading the league. We were, top 10 in efficiency with Jacoby Brissett under center. So Kevin Stefanski can do big things with Baker Mayfield. He's done big things with Jacoby Brissett. He will do big things with Deshaun Watson whenever he gets up to speed this year. That will happen. I'm not worried about the offense at all. I know a lot of people, we can talk about wide receiver and stuff here in a little bit. I'm not as concerned just because of the Stefanski, Watson, whole thing going on, but defensively had to get the right coach. Special teams had to get any other coach, and we got a good one. Probably the best one we could have possibly gotten. So very pumped about all of that. And one last thing about Jim Schwartz, too, is there's the potential that, he brings in some of his own staff that he likes under him for some of these positional coaching jobs, and then there might be a guy that develops under him that we could end up signing to a future defensive coordinator spot without having to go out and, interview guys again because things fell apart or whatever.
Yeah, or even he knows guys.
Right.
You know, just being around the league so long, he can point, maybe not a guarantee who the next guy will be, but he can say, hey, this is the guy I endorsed for the job. So, yeah, I completely agree. Schwartz is awesome. I love Jim Schwartz. Great interview, fun to watch, very entertaining. Love it.
This episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Spring is in the air, and that can only mean one thing: spring grilling. The steak experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to spring into something delicious with their semi-annual sale. With 50% off site-wide, grab all your favorites like perfectly aged, tender steaks, ocean fresh seafood, juicy burgers, incredible air-chilled chicken, and decadent desserts. Plus, when you go to omahasteaks.com and use promo code DAWGS, D-A-W-G-S at checkout, you'll get an extra $30 off your order. It's the perfect way to get fired up and spring into something special. Don't wait. Go to omahasteaks.com. Use code DAWGS at checkout. Take advantage of this deal right now. Omaha Steaks is ready to ship your order right away, and you're going to want to hurry because 50% off site-wide is only happening for a limited time. So don't miss your chance to save big right now. Visit omahasteaks.com. Use code DAWGS, D-A-W-G-S at checkout. Get that additional $30 off when you shop their semi-annual sale today. Minimum order may be required. This episode is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. The biggest tournament in college basketball is underway, and the action is just getting started on DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any pregame moneyline bet and score $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. Plus, combine multiple bets for a shot at an even bigger payout. DraftKings will be featuring parlays and odds boosts all tournament long, so be sure to check the DraftKings Sportsbook app every day to see what they have in store. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Sign up with code TPPN. Right now, new customers can bet $5 on any pregame moneyline bet and get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code TPPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
That's great. The offseason has been, for me, I might already give it an A if I'm taking into account the coaching hires. Free agency, I think you're pretty fair with the B+ grade that you gave them there. What guys or guy could they sign still that you think would take it to an A?
Take it to an A is kind of tough because for me, I think in order to make it an A, you have to be an immediate big time impact guy. I have 4 names for you here. I don't know if they would necessarily give it an A, but I think could bump it up to like an A- would be kind of where I'm looking at if you want to get technical. But DJ Chark is somebody that I got my eyes on. He's young-ish. He's had some injury history, but he's a guy you could bring in here and he would be an instant solid number 3, right? And you wouldn't have to count on David Bell. And there's kind of an opinion going around on Brown's Twitter with David Bell that he's a bust. I don't think he's a bust at all. It's hard to be a bust as a 3rd-round pick unless your name's Anthony Schwartz. So I think David Bell is going to be fine. I just think we can't force him into a big role right now. I think Chark could come in, give him a 1-2 year deal. That would help you out a lot. Second one is the one I think the Browns should absolutely do, and that's Mecole Hardman, because the longer he sits out there, the cheaper he's getting. And
that's true.
That is your Anthony Schwartz. That's the guy that you thought you were getting, and he's available, and he's not going to cost a ton of money. And I think the Browns desperately need that integration of speed within the offense. I mean, watching the receivers last year, it's not that they're bad, it's just they're missing that extra level of speed and separation, right? Mari Cooper is fantastic, but outside of him, separation and speed is a major problem. And just quickly while we're on receiver, I want Browns fans to realize we are like a year or 2 away from disaster at the wide receiver position if it's not addressed. The only 2 guys who are here 3 years, or the only 2 guys that are guaranteed to be here at least for 3 years is literally David Bell and Michael Woods. That's it. That is it. Donovan Peoples-Jones is up for contract next year. Based on how he played this year and then getting a full season with Deshaun Watson in that new upgraded Kevin Stefanski offense, he's going to price himself out. And we're going to be stuck if we don't find a way to either replace him or pay him. So the Browns, receivers desperate. I think they need to draft one at 42, sign a guy, and maybe draft 2 receivers. I think they really, really need to address that position. And the other 2 guys, Matthew Ioannidis, who's got experience starting, he would be a really good instant D tackle number 2 next to Tomlinson. Don't know what his price tag would be, but if you can work it out, I would give him like a 2-year deal, 1-year deal if he wants to bet on himself. I think he could be a really good impact guy. And then the last one, not a big name necessarily, but this linebacker room needs help, and I've always liked Denzel Perriman out of Vegas. I think he would be an interesting fit. I think he would fit what Jim Schwartz would like to do. I was really hoping Devin Bush might sneak his way into Cleveland, but oh well. Went to Seattle. Oh well. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned linebacker. That is one spot that we haven't addressed yet. I think we really need to. For me, that might even be a little more important than wide receiver, though I do take your point about looking down the road. It doesn't look very good right now as far as what we have locked up as far as receiver goes. Mecole Hardman is a guy that I agree with you that he's getting cheaper the longer he sits out there, but I believe he's he's got to be the best free agent wide receiver available right now.
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, people are getting infatuated with OBJ like they do every offseason.
Yeah, so, he was supposed to play somewhere last year too.
Yeah, just depends on who you ask. But yeah, it's Mecole Hardman's very interesting because for a guy like him with that speed, and he's not an Anthony Schwartz. He can catch and he can run decent routes. Like, you're not talking about a bum with speed. He's not a John Ross, right?
Right.
I think the only kind of red flag with him is that he played in one of the best offenses. So people view this as like that's his ceiling. I don't disagree with that, but my point here is I think it's not as much about Mecole Hardman as much as it is about opening it up for everybody. Is kind of how I view it.
Yep.
So that's why I want him.
My fear with him, well, it's not. I guess it's not a fear about him personally or him as a player. It's the whole situation is I think he's probably going to cost more than what Andrew Berry's willing to pay for that role. You probably saw the videos. I had my eyes set on Paris Campbell because I thought we could get him at a lower price point, and he would be that guy to open up the offense. He went for more money than what he was projected and more money than I thought he was going to get. So that makes me wonder how much Mecole Hardman's actually going to, get on the market. And I've got a feeling that it's more than what Berry's. You know how Berry is with spending the cap space. Outside of Deshaun, everything's a deal, a bargain.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've noticed the common theme here, at least among the important guys that Andrew Berry has signed. I pointed this out. Me and my buddy Tristan have a podcast, and we noticed this little detail stuff, the contract side of things. One, Thornhill, Delvin Tomlinson, Okoronkwo, all on Ethan Posick, you can throw in here, all 3 years or longer, 3 to 4 years. So to me, Andrew Berry is looking at certain positions and saying, we want to not have to worry about those positions for the next 3 years, which, sure, that's great. But if you're going to do that, how are you going to address the other positions? And that's why I bring up, with linebacker and wide receiver, I mean, you don't really have the money to spend on it, so you got to hit on the draft picks. And we have not seen them hit on wide receiver or linebacker, really, for the last couple years. And it's a problem, but I think, Josh, for me, stop trading back. Find the guy that you like and take it. I mean, last year, I know we didn't see a lot of him, but I loved Sky Moore. I think he would have been a great fit in Cleveland. Went to Kansas City. George Pickens, clearly we see what he's doing in Pittsburgh, and of course he ends up a Steeler.
Yep.
But you had those guys there, and you said let's pass, right? You can't do that anymore. You got 42. Unless you're trading for Jerry Jeudy, take a receiver at 42. You have to do it. When I'm there draft night, let me tell you something. If it's not a receiver at 42, I'm going to be livid because tell me where else they should go at 42. There's not a linebacker that I would take at 42. I mean,
No, I agree with you.
I don't know.
Today's show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Whatever is going on in your life, BetterHelp could be a great option for you. BetterHelp is convenient, flexible, affordable therapy that's custom built for you. And best of all, it's 100% online, so you don't have to leave the comfort of your home. And finding the right person is just as easy. Just fill out a short questionnaire, and it'll match you with a licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists at any time, for any reason, at no additional charge. Look, we all have stuff we're carrying around. And finding someone that you can just talk to, a professional to just talk through it, it really, truly helps. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/dogs, DAWGS today for 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/dogs.
What worries me about receiver at 42 is that the top, or at least from my understanding from the research I've done, the top end talent of the wide receiver class in the draft isn't very big. So it's going to drop off, and I think there's a large tier break. And so what that has the potential to do is push guys that are, mid to late second round guys up into the end of the first round, early second round. And all of a sudden, sitting at 42, we're stuck with guys that we should have been able to honestly trade back and probably get. And now if we're desperate trying to grab a receiver, that's just my worry, because like last year we saw that run on wide receivers, and there were guys that were getting taken in the first round that were eyebrow raisers a little bit. So there is the potential for that to happen, but I can't disagree with anything you said. We have to address the position.
I don't disagree with you. I think that is certainly a possibility, although I don't see that happening personally, because I think the top of the draft is going to be shaken up so much because the Panthers have now blown the gates open, trading up to number 1, which, by the way, good for Justin Fields, because that they fleeced the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Panthers take AR-15, Anthony Richardson, or God forbid they bust on a Will Levis, because I don't like him at all. If they take him number 1, oh my gosh, then you're going to really see people going, oh my gosh, Stroud's available, Young's available, whoever else. Like, the top of the draft is going to be crazy. The middle of the draft is where things are going to start to calm down. So I think depending on what these top defensive guys, where they fall, if they fall into the mid area of the draft, then I think you will see the receiver slip into the second round, because there's 2 to 3 guys that are viewed as the A tier, right? You got Jordan Addison, who's fantastic. I hope to God he doesn't end up in Pittsburgh. I don't think he will, but you know how it goes. So him, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and then a guy like Zay Flowers, right? Those are kind of the 3 names that have flown up into the first round. Outside of that second tier of guys, it's very deep, because you have like probably 7 to 8 guys who are all about the same level of talent, but good at different things. So, and there's going to be a lot of Browns fans who are mad at me saying this, but don't be surprised if at 42, a certain Tennessee Volunteer is there, and old Jimmy gets on the phone before Andrew Berry and says, give me Jalen Hyatt. I would not be surprised. We know how Jimmy Haslam is, right?
Yeah.
So I don't hate Jalen Hyatt. I know a lot of people do, but I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. The draft is always interesting, right? We saw last year. This year, I think it could be even crazier, honestly.
Well, that'll be good, because we'll be recapping the first round whenever we do our live coverage, and then we'll be going through round 2, and we'll get to talk about who's on the board leading up to that pick 42, and whether or not the Browns, God forbid, they trade back again, or a couple years ago we saw them trade up a few spots to go get JOK. So could be a situation where, if basically what you're saying is you're kind of anticipating the opposite of what I'm anticipating with the wide receivers. You're thinking there might be talent getting pushed back toward us.
It just depends.
And I know that's what's fun about it. Yeah. I mean, you just sit there and watch and go, oh boy, here we go.
Let me tell you something. If somehow Jackson Smith-Njigba ends up in Cleveland. Me and Blake are taking our shirts off, and we're going to do a couple laps around the studio.
Well, I think there might be all of us doing that, because if we get JSN in Cleveland, but I think that would require a trade up.
Yeah, definitely.
If the right situation presents itself, and what the Browns do or don't do here in free agency leading up to the draft will really tell us what they're gearing up for in the draft. Because if we don't bring in that guy at wide receiver in free agency, they're going after somebody in the draft, and that means they've got their eyes set on maybe a handful of guys, and wherever they end up, they might have to go get them.
And I don't think we're going to use all of our picks. Whether if that's trade them for next year, trade them for this year, we just don't have the roster spots. So
no, and that's a good point. We've got the ammo, third round, fourth round picks to kind of bump us up, maybe throw in one from next year's, whatever we got to do to go get the guy that they have identified.
Exactly. So yeah, that's the perks of having a good front office. Hey, look at how many third round picks we've added from people getting hired out of our front office.
Yeah,
that's what you do. Like look at the Patriots. I mean, how many extra picks have they gotten? So, there's a lot of good. There's a lot to be excited about, but at the same time, there is some scares here, and I'm not trying to be negative, but I think the reality is the Browns clearly have done everything they can so far throughout free agency on the defensive side. And it's not that the offense needs a ton of work, but now it's time to somewhat invest here. I mean, they got Jordan Atkins, who's a solid, probably tied into what happens with Harrison Bryant, because he's already got that relationship with Deshaun. So it's like, who knows? There's a ton of different ways I could see this going. It's just a matter of how they're going to play it out. That's the fun part.
Yep, I just did a video about Akins. Honestly, as far as receiving tight end goes, because we know how much they utilize Njoku in the passing game, the blocking game, because he's so good at it. So if he's blocking on passing downs, Akins is a very good receiving tight end who can also be on the field working the middle. He's big-bodied guy. He's like 6'4", 245 or something. So he's a beast out there, and he definitely has some highlight reels in Houston with Deshaun Watson already, like you mentioned. So I like that. I like them bringing in somebody that's got familiarity with Watson that's really good. And I think that also plays too. There's just not a whole lot of wide receivers in free agency that I think are worth the money right now. I mean, we'll see what happens with Mecole Hardman, if they can swing a deal for him. Maybe DJ Chark, like you mentioned. I know I've seen that name linked to the Browns a little bit too.
Yeah, who knows? Free agency's weird. And it's just beginning. We're kind of stuck in this phase of like, oh my gosh, we got to get this guy now. But, it's a long waiting game. I mean, remember, we didn't get Clowney till what, like July or something crazy?
Yeah.
So who knows? The trade market's open. It's cliche to say trust AB, because I'm not going to blindly trust AB, but at the same time, it's like, all right, who saw Amari Cooper coming to Cleveland last year for a 5th round pick? So,
right.
I mean, I know a lot of people are mad about Cooks going to Dallas for a 5th and a 6th, but it is what it is. Just got to wait and see. But the last thing I wanted to say, but your point on Njoku about his blocking, what a testament it is to David Njoku, because when he was first in Cleveland, he couldn't block to save his life. He had drops all over the place, and now he is really molded into a great starting tight end, and we extended him. So Andrew Berry's not going to extend a guy, what he signed, a 5-year deal. So like, clearly AB trusts him enough to make him a cornerstone of the Cleveland Browns. So just want to throw that out there, for everybody who's like, oh, Njoku, he's improved a lot, and I think he deserves the respect. And hey, full season with Deshaun next year, how much better is he going to be? So
yep, we've given a lot of props to David, just the path that he's gone down, with requesting the trade, wanting out of Cleveland.
Oh yeah.
He fired his agent, got a new agent, worked through the process, came back, said, okay, I'm all in. I'm ready to be part of the Cleveland Browns. I want to contribute. I want to be the guy. Signs the extension. I mean, and just the way he's improved his game. I mean, he really is a he's a great success story.
And then oh my gosh, the Mary Kay. Do you remember when that happened, when him and Mary Kay were going back and forth?
You'll have to remind me a little bit.
Oh my gosh. One of the funniest things I've ever seen a Browns player do. And trust me, the Browns, we have a history of some crazy people, but this man, David Njoku, so Mary Kay had texted or had DM'd him on Instagram, which is kind of strange, nothing against Mary Kay, but that is a little strange, I thought. And she asked, like, are you still requesting a trade or whatever? And David responds with, do you want to play PUBG? And I forget what she had said. She said, like, LOL, no, like, just trying to get some information or whatever. And he said, like, well, if you're not wanting to play with me, then I don't need to answer your question or something like that. And then she responded with, well, my son might play with you. And then he just didn't respond. So I love David Njoku just for that, because oh my gosh, when I read that for the first time, I was like, that is one of the craziest things I've ever seen an NFL player and a NFL beat reporter have an encounter. Like,
that's hilarious.
Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he's
crazy.
He's embodied that Cleveland culture, that the dog. I mean, he's a Brown man, and I for one am definitely glad that he's stuck, he's stuck with the team stuck with him. We got through all that turmoil, and it just seems to be paying dividends for both sides right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think Akins helps him. I think he helps Akins. I honestly think this is going to be a good tight end pairing in Cleveland. I really do.
Yeah, I think so too. They were interested in Donald Parham,
yeah,
I think, who re-signed with the Chargers. So the fact that fell through, they were like, all right, well, let's get another Deshaun tight end who worked out well with him. So can't be too mad at it. And did you see the money on that? I saw it was a 2-year deal. I didn't get the money on that, but it's cheap, right?
Yeah, it was under 2. It was like $1.95 million a year.
Oh yeah. That's dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Cheap.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it kind of filled that Paris Campbell spot that I was looking at as far as what he can bring to the offense, being that intermediate guy, but he can also stretch the field down the seam. Like, that's where he excels. And for that price point that I was hoping they could get Paris Campbell. So I think it works. I think it's a good fit. And, I guess we'll have to wait till September to see it play out on the field, but I am excited about that signing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And a lot of good value. I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway from free agency so far. One big ticket item, and the rest are very good value.
Yes.
Very good value. So
yep,
can't be too upset at it. I know, we had our eyes set on Hargrave and Bates, and I wanted CJ Gardner-Johnson, who got a cheap deal with Detroit. What a steal for Detroit.
Yep. Yeah, it was.
But yeah, I mean, hey, good start. Got a long rest of the offseason. Let's see what we do with it.
Yep, we do. And part of that offseason, like we said at the top of the show, is going to be NFL Draft. Night 2, we're going to be live in studio. We're going to live stream on YouTube. Derek's going to be with us in the studio. So check that out. Night 2 of the NFL Draft. We'll probably start around 6:45, maybe a little early. Kick things off and just kind of preview round 2. Recap night 1 and just have a lot of fun sitting around talking and interacting with the fans. So make sure you're jumping in the comments that night and say hi. We're going to have a good time. It's going to be fun.
Oh, I can't wait. I love the draft. And it's going to be even better hanging out with you guys. So
absolutely.
Can't wait.
Why don't you go ahead, plug your socials, plug your YouTube real quick, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right. Yeah. The YouTube is just DF Sports. I know I was a little bit of a break there for a minute, but I'm trying to get back to uploading regularly as the off season goes on. But appreciate it if you guys check me out. It's free. Do whatever you want. I don't care if you dislike the video. Just check it out. Hey, doesn't hurt. And then also you can follow me on Twitter. It's DF_sports_ is what it is. So my Twitter, I'm very active. And, I've told Josh and the boys, jump in spaces, man. We're going all the time. I'm at work, multitasking, talking about the Browns. So it never ends. It literally never ends. Browns Twitter is crazy. But follow me on Twitter. Follow me on YouTube. And I think that's about it for me.
All right. Well, listen, appreciate you joining the show. I'm sure everybody enjoyed this. And I I can't wait to have you in studio, like I said, for the draft. It's going to be a lot of fun. Everybody make sure you check out Derek's YouTube, on Twitter, and then make sure if you want more Browns content, join thedawgs.com, become an official Dog Pack member. Derek's in there too, so you can interact with him more on that side of things as well. And we're going to wrap this up. So until we talk to you guys next time, go Browns.
Go Browns.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dawgs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedawgspodcast.com.